identification of this rooster figure with a yo, also as he was described as a yo Tsebaoth, right? Jupiter Sabaoth, which is the calque of the Hebrew Yahweh, or Yod He Vav He Sabaoth. Here another seal, but for some reason there is there is the same attestation. Look, it's hard to speculate whether they identified this figure with the Mithra, because there is a spelling of the Mithras, but
yeah,
it's interesting.
I would say somebody would have to notice that, like the name Abraxas, the letters sum to 365, as do the letters in Mithras. So that would have to have significance to somebody counting.
Of the letters with a specific number values attached to it, but it was very important for the ancients. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
because even the whole things with all these palindromes they're using, the words which you can read like straight away or reversal.
Yeah.
It's all deeply connected to this Gematria stuff, right? To the association.
Thank you for joining us. This is Brave New History. We're joined here with Gnostic Quran. It's not universal that he's described as having the head of a rooster. Some people say falcon head, which would make a whole lot more sense than a rooster head, but I think this is just an interpretation of people seeing this head, that we just see a rooster, but other people see a falcon.
If we do connect it with a more Egyptian kind of a provenance. And I, by the way, have one. Just 1 second, I'm gonna share the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, here you can see, like, I mean, it's not the precisely Abraxas, but we have like plenty of the Greek magical seals discovered, roughly from 3rd to the 5th AD, which all about this kind of weird anthropomorphic, zoomorphic deities alike.
Yeah.
And yeah, with the head of the birds, and this is the now this is the famous or early attestation of the maybe Christ, right?
Yeah. Do you remember offhand when this is dated to?
To the 2nd century, as far as I know. But this one is among the oldest too. And before invention of this was considered to be the oldest depiction of Christ, because he is literally called here Christe, as you can see. Pater Eiso Christe, yeah, that would be the clear attestation of the Jesus. But he, like, as you can see, his like feet are not nailed.
Yeah, it looks like a marionette, doesn't he? He's like tied onto the cross, isn't he? And he's wearing a helmet. Looks like a Roman.
Yeah, but interestingly, even in some gospel narratives, it's just he was put on the cross. It's not nailed. He wasn't nailed on the cross. So. It definitely was crucified, but yeah, and This is, I don't even know. I just picked this up from some recent auctions. How is it in English? Auctions.
Auction?
Yeah, where people selling the stuff for unimaginable amount of money.
I need to get on that hustle, huh? I need to make myself one of
Uh,
those and sell it.
but
Dating uncertain, I'll put.
but I just try to find. Yeah, here's the one of
Yeah,
the
here we go, legend.
representation of the Abraxas, and this is from the early 4th century, as far as I remember. But here you can see that it's not even the rooster; it's the head of a dog. Here, so you can see like the different representation of that deity.
So what's the background with this picture?
I don't know, because it's just loosely explained on the British Museum as being just a
Yeah, it's like here's a weird image.
yeah, here's the weird image with a yeah. But there is some symbolism definitely going on, why the deity itself holding some symbols in hands like a key, but don't ask me, I'm not a specialist. I guess some specialist in the Greek sculpture can give some answer,
Yeah,
but here's the most
there's our
like
buddy Abraxas right there.
yeah, enigmatic portrayal of him with the Yao. Yes, he's often was associated with the Jupiter and the Yahweh itself.
Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah, and
you can easily connect Yahweh with Yov, right? With a Greek name or title for the Jupiter. And well, it makes sense, right? Because in Gnostic cosmology, Yahweh stands for the chief archon, and Abraxas itself described as being the major archon, at least in Basilidian
yeah,
documents, is the one preceding before 365, which in Gnostic cosmology connected with the universe, and oftenly you see that the universe itself connected as a macrocosm connected with a microcosm, with a human body, and that's why the 365 archons are responsible for the creating different parts of the body. So often the limbs of the human body associated with a different type of the archon, which you can witness in the famous Apocryphon of John text. And well, you can speculate and say that this theme, this particular me theme, is connected with a Plato, Timaeus, and his ideas. But yeah,
what would be
I
the
just
connection?
well the whole association of the body with this world of forms, but certainly the same framework, the same theological framework. And I'm trying to find the yeah, it's gonna be further up. This is just the representation of this leontomorphic deity, often associated with Yaldabaoth too. Well, at least in several Gnostic texts, the Yaldabaoth described as being the holding the body of the snake and the head of the lion. And I don't think they try to connect him, because it's mostly a majoritarian view in the academia that somehow they try to connect the figure of Yaldabaoth with the Lyo, the zodiac. But I don't think so. I think it's just symbolic representation of a more solar type of animal, like rooster and dog. And the lion having this big mane, you may even portray him as a sun like. And the cult of sun was very prominent even during these early stages of Christianity, cult of the sun and Sol Invictus. Even Christ himself in some synagogues would be portrayed as the soul, but and here I don't remember that. As far as I know, there was a second part of this talisman, and where the Jesus heals the woman who had this I don't know, mess with her menstrual cycle. He's just bleeding for the 12th month, and she asked Jesus to heal her, and Jesus heals her. It's before. It was before this. Yeah, here it is. It's just the reverse of the same talisman. And we can see the figure of Jesus, the same woman, which bends and pleads Jesus to heal her, and Jesus, like a magician, using sort of a magic incantation to heal her, and here is like total gibberish as far as I know, but usually it's a norm in this type of amulets.
You wonder why. Yeah, like with the Greek magical papyri, there's a lot of complete nonsense in there. And you wonder what's behind that.
Well,
Because
I myself think that this serves as not as a mantra, because mantras in the Vedic tradition serves a different purpose. It's more or less the ritual which is dedicated to your inner self, to like to rebuilding your like inner flows, energetic flows connected with your chakras, and so on. That's why it's also has a connotation with the breathing techniques, with the pranayama. But here I think it's more or less invocative description for the specific deity attached to it. So pronouncing this gibberish, you invoking this defensive spirit, basically, who has this ability to protect you from evil, or from the evil eye, right? That was the whole purpose of all of this magical talismans. And sometimes you will find even the Hebrew, sometimes gibberish, but sometimes quotation from the Old Testament. But yeah, let me skip this a little bit. It's from the British Museum, and you can see again the identification of this rooster figure with a yo, also as he was described as a yo Tsebaoth, right? Jupiter Sabaoth, which is the calque of the Hebrew Yahweh, or Yod He Vav He Sabaoth. Here another seal, but for some reason there is there is the same attestation. Look, it's hard to speculate whether they identified this figure with a Mithra, because there is a spelling of the Mithras, but
yeah,
it's interesting.
I would say somebody would have to notice that, like the name Abraxas, The letters sum to 365, as do the letters in Mithras. So that would have to have significance to somebody
Yeah,
counting.
yeah, I think.
Yeah,
Because
it's
even
just
the whole things with all this palindromes they're using, the words which you can read like straight away or reversal,
yeah.
uh, it's all deeply connected to this gematria stuff, right? To the association of the letters with the specific number values attached to it. But it was very important for the ancients. And here, by the way, but let's skip it for a little bit. Uh, Here another magical seal, but you can see this is just straight away Egyptian pantheon here. So you have again this gibberish in Coptic and Seth, donkey-headed deity with the Horus, right? As far as I remember, Horus is a lion-headed. So again, it's more of Egyptian stuff we are dealing with rather than Persian, from my perspective. Here again, Yaldabaoth, but here is gibberish, like it's some again the magic code. Well, it's gibberish for us, definitely. For them, it was just a conventional language. And this is from India, but just to show that the whole tradition of these deities with the serpentine legs are not only restricted to the Europe and the Middle East and Egypt. Here's another seal, and we can see Abraxas instead of Abraxas. And again, I'm not a specialist to speculate why they choose to change these two letters. And here's Abraxas, but here again we're not seeing this usual rooster or zoomorphic deity, but this is, as far as I know, one of the Egyptian deities again. I don't remember what kind of a deity. Hypo... No, I'm not gonna just pull up it out of my head. Sorry. This is again, but there is a lot of seals like that you can see in the British Museum website. They published it online, and here we again see the serpentine legs, but instead of the rooster head, we have a donkey head instead. And Yo again as an identificator name. And this was engraved on some rock, as far as I know, but like there's a definite Egyptian connection in that case. Some magical formula, Ouroboros, and I don't know, some Egyptian statue. Here again, unfortunately, the reverse was damaged, but again, some gibberish, some magical formula, Egyptian deity. And this is ultimately from the same geographical source, so same culture producing all of this stuff. Here again Abraxas, but the Jewish name appears, Adonai. and Yah Sabaoth, and the straightaway identification with Jupiter, or with the Yahweh. But from my perspective, I think that was the whole tradition within this Greco-Roman Judaism to identify this tetragrammaton with the name of the Jupiter. But many Jews rejected this interpretation of this. As far as I know, the Samaritans was the first who came up with this stuff. Here another one with Abraxas. Yeah, and this is the last one. But I myself has literally zero idea what is going on, because this is not my field of the study.
Yeah, it's definitely very weird. What would Basilides be interested in with this? That
Well, there is no this pictorial description, as we can see in the Basilides writing. He just identify him with his chief archon, and all this weird association with the Egyptian deities is not by the hands of the Basilides himself. Well, maybe the followers of Basilides is possible too. And some of these gemstones are just Christian, like with the Jesus being crucified. So I myself think that most of them were utilized by the Christian Gnostics, who were much more popular in the in the 3rd and the 4th century. Even the centralization of the Christianity, which began with the Nicaea, right? Even the Nicene formulas itself in Greek bears the Gnostic language, like homoousion, united with or in the same essence with the Father. This is just Basilides used this language himself. So it was still there, this type of Christianity. It wasn't removed forcefully until the Justinian, pretty much, in the 5th century, in the late 5th century. But before that, we can witness a very different trend. What is fascinating, right, that this crucified Jesus sigil, which itself shows that, well, it's very important finding, right, to testify of historicity of Jesus himself. And why on earth the historical Jesus find itself on some magical sigils? That's another big question. And usually, like, Orthodox Christianity doesn't pretty much like the stuff being discussed in the public. What is interesting that later on this sigils will find its way in or among the Templars. There's similar sigils, but with this kind of a emblematic motto or slogan of the Templars on the margin of the sigil. This, how is it, Templos Secretum Templis, like the secret temple. And they were big fans of the Dome of the Rock too. That's weird, because even in some inscriptions, it's definitely Dome of the Rock, which we are aware of, like the current day Dome of the Rock, at least how they portray it, it's very similar. So it was of a big significance for the Templars, but why it's in the Templar time, for me, it's like big mystery. I don't know. I have some idea that maybe they find out somewhere about the stashes of the seals, because well, archaeology is not simply like a recent phenomena. And after finding out that well, there's a lot of Christian stuff on this seal, they were like, let's use it. It's looking cool, and or something like that. But other than that, I cannot suggest that there was a sort of a continuous production of the seals.
Yeah.
At least we don't have the evidence for that. But yeah, and many of the stuff was also found in Britain, which another mysterious part of the whole story. Why on earth the Greco-Roman seals will find its way into Britain? But I guess things happened. Britain was a colony, but yeah. Do you have any ideas himself or yourself, or what on earth is going
Yeah,
on?
I wonder. It's all like, for me, it's just speculation. So I wonder if like these come from around the time of Basilides, and he's in Egypt, so it makes sense that he's using Egyptian ideas. Um, I think there's those prehistoric, or what are the pre-life animals, the Leviathan and the bird. What's the bird? The as.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, so you wonder if that might be a depiction there. There's the bird, and then there's the Leviathan, the serpent. And then we would wonder, it's a trinity. There's like the behemoth. Where's the behemoth represented then, right? Because if you're going to have two, you're going to have the behemoth and the Leviathan. You're not going to have the as, because nobody really cares about that. But so it would be unusual to have those two and not the behemoth represented in it. So maybe that goes out the window. But I think it's interesting about how, we have the bird, ancient bird in the sky, and then the ancient serpent below. But then there's a human. Is that just supposed to be Christ? Or what is going on with that? He's carrying a flail and a shield. Is that like the cleansing of the temple? Maybe. But it's supposed to be like a Gnostic understanding of it, that he's just cleansing the world, from the archons or some other meaning. Or we could say, Christ is compared to that serpent in the wilderness, the serpent, the brazen serpent. And so we might have that feature of Christ represented, and then the cleansing of the temple, that's the human with the flail. And then the rooster could be the part where Christ is compared to a hen, and his the devotees are his chicks. Maybe that's probably a stretch to say that, but maybe it could be Peter and the rooster, right? So the church fathers, they wrote a lot about how Jesus is that rooster that's crowing to like bring you back. And just to add more crazy speculation, Basilides, he said that like heresy and like leaving the church isn't a sin. it comes as the response to sin. So if you sin enough, eventually you'll leave the church. But leaving the church isn't a sin, or like apostasy or heresy, whatever. So you would wonder if, like, in Basilidian thought, he would think a lot about that rooster, right? Where Peter's denying Christ and what's going on there, right? So you'd wonder if these images aren't connected biblically, that it's meant to represent Christ. What the name actually means, I've looked a lot into it and I can't find a decent explanation for it. Like anything in, like the Greek magical papyri say that it's in the language of baboons, right? Which, okay, well, what is that? Like, it doesn't really go very far what the language of baboons is, except I've heard the language of baboons is said to be the language of Thoth, or Toth, or however you say his name. And his language was said to be Middle Egyptian. So that gives us something. It's something from the Middle Egyptian language, but I've looked, I can't find much. And ultimately, I think it's interesting how it's so basic, the name Abraxas is arrived at. Like, it's what, a 100, a 200, a 60, and a few ones, right, with A's. So it's almost as if you're working backwards. You want to get to 365, and you're like, how can we make that happen? And Abraxas is like the most basic way to make that happen. So it seems to me that the name Abraxas was derived to get to the 365. Mithras also reaches 365, so maybe just people looked at that and were like, maybe there's something going on here, right? Where, like, Abraxas, they thought, well, that's another name for Jesus, or that's Jesus' true name, and so maybe Mithras is Jesus in some way. But ultimately, who knows? Like, this is just all speculation. I'm trying to make it as coherent as possible, but yeah, unfortunately, Basilides, well, they probably burned his book that where he explained everything, so, what can you do?
Yeah, and even the representation is triadic, but that's not everywhere. Even the idea of this trimorphic anthropology that you have pneumatics, psychics, and helix. So the snakes would represent this helix, the body of the warrior, of the psychics, and this rooster, or whatever, maybe donkey head, or lion as the pneuma. But how you can connect that to this pneumatic gods? I don't even know. I have this idea that these animals themselves are solar, and maybe through that. But again, why he holding the shield with the flail? Another question. But others would have a key in the hand instead of the flail. So it's a mess from my perspective. Just I don't think there was just one kind of a one median, or how's it one trend to portray this deity in a specific way. You can portray it differently depending on your local preference. Maybe some people would be connected to this sort of local Egyptian deities still, which were important, and they try to merge it into the more, I guess, some philosophical idea of the Basilides. So you can sort of be a cosmopolite in that case. So if you're people following the thought, or at least your specific tribe or family are worshipping the thought, you can use this particular head for the deity. If you're worshipping this type of deity, use different one. But still, they would be attaching to the main symbol or main philosophical framework of this Basilides through the pantheism, through the different pantheons. But I don't know. It's too speculative again. But well, what can you do? What can you do? The question, of course, why on earth with the same sigils you will find Jesus and stuff? That's the big question. It's certainly Christian in origin. Even the idea of identifying this figure with a Yahweh, like, well, that's the Orthodox Christianity, my friend, where the Jesus himself is the Yahweh, right? All the theophanies in the Old Testament is Jesus, burning bush is Jesus, everything is Jesus. So it's Christian. I don't think it's stemming from some like sex pantheon, like a pagan cults, or it just has its reputation due to the fact that, well, Christianity early on were pretty much into the magic, and that was big no for the imperial form of Christianity. I don't think it was even a big problem until the Justinian again with the whole magic issue. But to be honest, the whole narratives of Jesus, he's like a magician. He's healing people, raising them from the dead. Like, well, what is that? Is it not a magic? Of course, you can argue, well, he's a god. He can do whatever he wishes. But from outsider point of view, it's pretty much the Jesus the magician type of thing. But further than that, I don't even know.
Yep, absolutely. So let's see if we have any comments or questions or whatnot. Everybody can put those in while we're over here. We might make it a bit of a short episode.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I have some because I recently published an article.
Oh, sure.
Obviously, it's not about the Abraxas, but about Manichaean connections to the Quran. This is a common article. We just agreed with Dr. Price that I will publish in his journal, so I can make some short comments, at least parallels between the Quran and this document itself is Coptic, which I use because they are, I would say, much more closer in their theology rather than Parthian documents we have from the East. But even there you can find some textual parallels. For example, the Arabic verb which is used in the Quran, sundus, meaning the sort of a luxurious material for clothing. Many suggest that this is a silk, but there is a debate. But what is interesting is the only attestation for that outside the Quran is the Manichaean Middle Persian document for this particular material, which is used to describe these heavenly garments in in Manichaeanism. So, well, it's not not a stretch to say, well, that this is a silk, because Eastern Manichaeanism would be connected to the China through the trade, and definitely silk trade, like what Silk Route. It was all about the silk trade. So until not the Heraclius, Justinian, as far as I know, who was the first to obtain this secret of producing silk. But I mean, you can't do it in the Europe. This particular caterpillars are not. They won't survive the climate. But yeah, going back to the parallels. For it's well known that the sun and moon is a very important celestial luminaries in the Manichaeanism, and the whole cosmos and Manichaean cosmology is literally built out of the slain demons, and it is not far from classical Chaldean or Mesopotamian cosmology, right? Where, oh my God, who was this god who slain this sea creature, the Tiamat, out of which he creates the universe? I
Was
don't
it
remember.
Enki?
Enki, yeah, certainly Enki. And you have the same in Manichaeanism, but it's not the Tiamat anymore, it's the archons.
Yeah.
And there
And
was
it's interesting how in Mithraism you have Mithras slaying the bull, just as was it Enki slays the bull of heaven? Or who was it? I
well,
forget.
you have some parallels in Hindu tradition where the Durga is one of the goddesses, and primarily it's one of the main goddesses in the Hinduism, by the way. Slains the. It's not exactly the same purpose, I guess, but she also slays the bull, but the bull in Hinduism is a innocent animal, in that case possessed by the demon. So after slaying the bull, this demon came out of the wound, which she pierces with a spear. So, but
Yeah.
I don't.
And it looks like it's Gilgamesh who slays the bull of heaven, just as Mithras slays
Ah,
the bull. But yeah, it's interesting the parallels with it.
still, it's and many scholars even connected to some biblical narratives, as far as I know, the whole Gilgamesh story. But I'm not
That's true.
into that stuff. But the sun and moon plays important role because there was a different battles before creation of the universe in Manichaeanism, and preceding like the last cosmic war, which provided the rich material for the construction of the universe, also marked the imprisonment of the light particles, like the light sparks, which you find everywhere in Gnosticism, right? And later in Kabbalah and Sufi traditions. And well, despite being victorious, this evocation of the higher light god, because, well, light god is too transcendental to be involved in the battle himself. He just produces the different deities to do the bad stuff for him. And well, after being successful, this evocations of light god, still some particles of light were remained entrapped in the matter, and the whole universe in this constant tangible state in Manichaeanism, because this is the basis for the messianism in Manichaeanism itself, because one of these evocations of the light king, which is the female deity called the living spirit, she builds the sun and moon as the literally cosmic pumps. So sun and moon plays this role of the pumps, which basically suck up this light particles, and moon being the first step in this process of salvation. And with it, the Manichaeans connect the lunar phases. So the moon, during the moon phases, are literally being filled with the souls until the full moon. After the full moon, the souls goes to the next celestial luminary or celestial ship, in that case the sun. And sun is just basically accumulates the souls until the day of judgment, until the what is called the great judgment in the Manichaeanism, because they held the two judgment systems. And I myself argue that you can see traces of that in the Quran, with the distinction between Yawm ad-Din, this is the major judgment, the destruction of the universe, and Yawm al-Qiyamah, or Yawm ad-Din you can translate as a day of judgment, literally, or the time of judgment, because Yawm is not necessarily connected with the day. And Yawm al-Qiyamah is the day of the risement, or the day of the standing. It's more literal reading. So, sun accumulates all the souls, and after the destruction of the universe, this celestially luminaries perishes as being as fulfilling their purpose. They being created by this living spirit. And yeah, but what is important, this idea representing this moon and sun in Manichaean documents as the cosmic vehicles. And we can definitely trace that in the Quran. Maybe it's not the literal connection, but definitely allusion to that. And yeah, the Manichaean understanding of cosmology is linked to the belief that elect possess a supernatural ability to extract the light from the food, and food itself is given to this higher upper class elects by the laity. The released light then stored in the ships of light. So the salvific process itself is initiated by the elects, either due to this in the ascetic state, basically. So salvation itself coming from the elects, who are, by processing the food, release the light. It's a weird form of soteriology, but well, it was the major doctrine. And then this released light stored in the moon, then in the next celestial domain in the sun. And moon is usually associated with Jesus himself, that he is I don't know, he's like the archon, but he's like an aeon, because the sun and moon was a positive luminaries. But in other Gnostic schools, you can see them being governed by the archons. So they are archontic, demonic. You can see it, for example, in the Apocryphon of John, but I myself question whether the Apocryphon of John portray the Yahweh in negative sense. You can I would debate otherwise. It's just portrayed neutrally, not necessarily negatively. But yeah, the sun and moon are kind of a pumps for vacuum in this light. And upon the initial examination, these themes may appear to be incompatible with the Quran, but when you're reading this text and compare it to the Coptic, you will find some striking similarities. For example, and let's just go to the Quran, or better to the Corpus Quran, I guess, because some reason months ago it wasn't working for me, but now it's okay. So Surah 84, verses from 18 to 19. That, and let's have some share screen. Just 1 second. Presentation, share screen.
I don't see it. Oh, there we go. Something's coming up.
Well, and then I wouldn't be able to open other. Just 1 second then. I just try to connect directly then. Because it's in a weird format, just camera. Yeah, we'll try to open this. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, it's okay, I guess. Is it working? Like, can you see my?
Yeah.
For some reason I have like a black.
I mean,
I hope you can see.
it's just kind of like window inception.
But now is it like the
oh, here we go. Now we're
okay.
oh, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the what is called Meccan surahs. It's more archaic, more homiletic in nature. فلا أقسم بالشفاق والليل وما وسق والقمر إذا اتسق لا تركبون طبق عن طبق. So what is important this part? والقمر إذا اتسق, when the moon becomes full, لا تركبون طبق عن طبق. When the moon becomes full, لا تركبون, you will surely embark. And this word is extremely important. As you can see, it's used to denote the process of riding, embarking on the ship, where there's a clear semantically and identical usage of the word, as we can see in some Coptic material. Can you see the Word document I'm showing, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I guess I could have just show the Word document, but you can see والقمر إذا اتسق لا تركبون طبق عن طبق. What is and here's some etymology, and most probably related to ancient South Arabian. So it's like a native Arabic, this wasaqa, meaning to carry on something, to be full. So in that case, it's the moon is full, not in the sense that it's just becoming full moon. It connects it directly to the Manichaean ideas that the moon are basically carry something inside it until it became full. And this idea is outlined in the Kephalia. This is one of the major Manichaean documents we have written in Coptic. Here we can see that the author of the Manichaean text equated the changes which occur in the moon with this influx of the souls. So the souls are gathered in the moon, and through the phases you can see this fulfillment, periodic fulfillment or feeling of the surface of the moon, which reflects this process of salvation. And noteworthy aspect is the use of the La Tarkabuna. As you can see, we can also connect to the Manichaean Psalm passage, which is written in Coptic, as well as the Kephalia, and both documents found in the same geographical location. The ships are the sun and moon. He that embarks, of him is nothing demanded. So this Arabic word, which is used, la tarkabuna, or rakaba, by the way, it's the same root in the Hebrew for the Merkava, mysticism, or the chariot, as it's often translated, mysticism. The Coptic verb telo, which is used in the psalm, is semantically identical to the rakaba. So we have the similar idea in our Quranic passage that, and again you have see further confirmation, tabaqa an tabaqa, like from stage to stage, basically, from one stage to another, which shows this Manichaean echo in this particular surah. Another passage is 36:38. 36:38. والشمس تجري لمستقر ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. So the Shams, the sun, runs, or rather flows, tajri, to a resting place, or to a appointed place. Let's just see how the word used throughout the Quran: to flow, to sail, to run, and mustaqarrin itself in another passage used to refer to the dwelling place, to the place of the rest. And these two words is very important to the intertextual connection with the Manichaean documents. Tajri means floating, swimming, which again connects to the previous passages, right, where the Manichaeans, this Manichaean embarks on the sun and moon. And place of the usage of mustaqarrin, meaning the place of rest, is also important. We can show some passage from Kephalia, again further in. Also, the light givers of the heavens have no place of rest among all the powers of the heaven, except for the land of light. Again, the light givers, in our case it's just literally sun and moon, have no place of rest except for the land of light. So, based on the passage, the land of light serves as a resting place for the celestial luminaries in the Manichaeanism. And I think the authors of the Quran were aware of this type of association. That's why this Shams, right, the sun in our passage, runs to this resting place, Mustaqarrin, to this land of light. And another interesting passage, 25:45. ألم تر إلى ربك كيف مد الظل ولو شاء لجعله سكينا ثم جعلنا الشمس عليه دليلا. This particular passage, ثم جعلنا الشمس عليه دليلا. Then we made the sun for it indication, dalil. The usage of the dalila in our context may be taken as synonymous to another word, ayah. And we see it again in the Quran where the sun is used to be equated with the, not with the dalil, but with the ayah, with being a sign of God. We can see it in 41:37. من آياته الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر. And among his sign, meaning the God signs, or at least this God, the all-hearing and all-knowing God, among the signs of all-hearing and all-knowing God is the night and day, and والشمس والقمر, the sun and moon. And this particular usage we can, or at least same pattern, we can see in the Kefalaya again. The seventh, the sun, and believe me, it's from the context. The previous verse indicate that the sun shall display and manifest to the world the sign of the splendor of the aeons of light, from which it has come out. It here in this word being the sign, it brings light to the whole of creation. Again, we can see the usage of the similar term in the Manichaean document and in the Quran itself, where the sun is equated with the sign of God. And we can also speculate what the Quran means by that, but I think it's not that distant, right? Because God himself can be equated with the whole, this pleroma realm. And here is maybe, again, the condemnation of some Manichaean practices. لا تسجدوا للشمس ولا للقمر واسجدوا لله الذي خلقهن. So do not prostrate towards the sun and towards the moon, but prostrate towards the God. And we can read it more literally, like tasjudu. Sajada in Arabic means to prostrate, but metaphorically it also can mean worship, to worship something. And this kind of a metaphor fairly popular in other languages. In Russian language, you can see the similar kind of stuff going on, where the worship, поклонение in Russian, is identified with the action of bowing down, кланяться. So similarly, we can observe the same thing in, and I will just skip ahead. In some Greek Manichaean documents, which was found in the Dakhla oasis. And the Greek verb which is used is a proskuno, which retained what is important, the ambiguity akin to the Arabic word sajada. It can mean both literally prostration or an act of worship. And we can see that maybe this is a sort of a pun against certain Manichaean communities which were doing act of prostration towards the sun of the moon and the moon during the prayer. Yeah, and I think that's enough for the quick view of my paper.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
So,
There we are.
so you can see like the similar, at least echoes. I'm not quite sure that. Well, the problem, of course, the nature of the Quran itself, because it's not like written like the Gospels or like the Pauline epistle. It's just a homily, and that's why it's problematic to suggest what's in the mind of the author and whether they possess the similar belief. But given the fact that this is the old, I mean, again, I think it's problematic too to say that the Meccan surahs are older than the Medinan surahs, but at least in the typology, in the style itself, it looks much more archaic than what we witness in the Medinan period of the prophethood, which is all about the politics. But from my perspective, I think that's a strong case of at least intertextual connection between Manichaean documents and the Quran, and why Manichaean documents began, because you won't find it anywhere except the Manichaean documents. This weird idea that sun and moons are like these salvatory ships which transfer the souls. You won't find it anywhere in the Gnosticism. You won't find it anywhere in the Judaism. That's why I'm so convinced, because you will only find it in Manichaeanism, because they held this very weird soteriology. And that was, by the way, the major reason for the Augustine, who was like a Manichaean for at least for the 30 years of his life, to denounce Manichaeanism. He would just mock them, saying like, what kind of nonsense you believe? Like this is just luminaries, nothing special to them. Yeah, I guess sometimes I myself think that the most closest religion which you will find, at least to what is presented at some portions of the Quran, it's Manichaeanism, especially the Iranian Manichaeanism, what was also known as the Mazdakism at some point of the history. And yeah, I think that at least what we do, what I used is the Coptic documents, and we're dealing with the Coptic Manichaean community, and definitely it would be very different from Iranian, right? But I don't think it would be different in terms of cosmology, because it was basically what Mani will write about, his major points of this idea of the two principles. But what we do find as similar as the practices, as the, I don't know what is called Sunnah in Arabic, is a tradition of this Iranian Mazdakite Manichaeanism. One of the prominent one was the idea of the very kind of illicit attitude towards the marriage itself. And you can see this weird stuff in the Quran where there is a specific law that the women after the divorce, it is prohibited for her to remarry the same person. She need to go to the next. She must marry another man, and after divorcing the second man, she's only allowed to remarry the first one. So at first glance, it will be kind of madness, right? But if you look into Masdekism, it's very similar to this idea that the wives should be shared in a sense that because the whole community is seen as the common property, not only the wives but the but the husbands too in that case, because polyandry was also part of the society as well as the polygamy, right? But Islam mysteriously preserved only the polygamy side. But I think even in some hadith you can you can sense even polyandry. But yeah, that the wife must not remarry the husband, because otherwise it would indicate that she's like seen as not as a common property, but the property of this particular individual. So it's egoistic to have such relations. And given the fact that even the term for the marriage itself in the Quran uses the verb nakaha, which literally mean in Arabic to have sex. It speaks volumes, because there is no such concept of marriage in the Quran. You won't find it. But this is just my speculation. But because I don't see the similarities in, as well as it pointed out by this recent scholarship. This is Jewish, Christian, Baptist, Nazarene, Judaism, or monophysite Christianity as it proposed by the Peter von Sievers. I think it could be easily explained, at least holistically, some portions of the Quran to be a part of the Manichaean doctrine. You can't explain this kind of stuff in the Christian worldview. Like, it would be blasphemous for Christians to have such a practices within the community. But yeah, I hope. I think that's enough for today, at least.
So here we have one comment / question from Iblis. Mithras was mentioned. Is there any connection between the ancient Greek Phanes? Hopefully I pronounced that right. I've only seen it written Phanes.
Phanes.
Phanes?
Phanes is this again
the god
weird god of the. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Skip me.
We'll say Faunus. I say Phanes, but I could be off. Probably am. And Abraxas.
As far as I know, it's in the Orphic tradition, which is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe.
He's portrayed similarly, that there is a sort of a zodiacal circle and the deity placed inside, but like Mithra. But because I don't have any idea about this.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. So I mean, certainly Mithras and Phanes, if I'm going to pronounce it that. I'm going to research it as soon as we get off how to pronounce the word. Excuse me. But certainly Mithras and Phanes are connected, expressly connected too. But Abraxas, I know. Well, I mean, there's the serpent thing that Phanes has the serpent wrapped around him. Um, I think fire in the hair, maybe fire and a rooster might go together. Maybe I'm just speculating too hard, but so basically, no. I don't know of any connection between them.
But interesting that again this Orphic mystery, right, and this one of the attestation, and I didn't show it on the stream, right? There was a famous amulet with the Orpheus being crucified instead of the Jesus. So maybe because I think it's not the same stylistically the stuff as the Greek amulet. So I think it's a different time and space, which this particular inscription was produced by. But I don't know. It's too speculative to suggest because this Abraxas thing I think it was important to portray him tripartite, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And Fanes is not, at least his iconography is different. It's just this beautiful dude with a snake around him. I don't know, but and with a fiery hair, which can be seen. You can see the parallels in the Zoroastrian pantheon with Azar, who also has the fiery head. But other than that, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. All right, so we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Look forward to your next chapter on.
Manichaean parallels.
Absolutely.
I think I'm the only madman who defends that. That's sad.
I think so. Oh,
Yeah.
good deal. All right. Thank you everybody for watching, and have an awesome day.
Bye.